You're listening to the Online Business Blueprint brought to you by PlatformLaunchers.com. I'm John Stange, and it's great to be with you this week, as always, because here we talk about building and growing and monetizing your online platform. We talk about taking your passion, turning it into a platform, and helping you earn a paycheck from that. And this week, we're going to be talking about gatekeepers. And I just want to say right at the outset, you do not need the traditional gatekeepers to be able to build a successful online platform. And I want to explain that for us throughout the course of today's episode. But I also want to invite you to stop over at platformlaunchers.com, where we have some courses and some freebies and some other content that can truly help you build, grow, and monetize your online platform. And in fact, I'd like to highlight one of the resources that we have over there. I'll take 2 seconds to do it. One of the resources you'll find at the website. You'll also find it on Amazon. I've got a book that I wrote a little while back. It's called Build, Grow, and Monetize Your Online Platform. You notice the theme, right? But that's available on Amazon. I'd encourage you to check that out if that's something that would be beneficial to you. Now, as I mentioned, our topic this week is you don't need the traditional gatekeepers to build a successful online platform. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, for decades, if you wanted to reach a large audience, your options were rather limited. Authors needed a publishing house. Musicians needed a record label. I mean, that was always a big deal for musicians. You know, what label did he get signed on, right? Speakers needed booking agents. Journalists needed a newspaper or a magazine or something similar. And these gatekeepers basically controlled access to all the major distribution channels. And without their approval, your work rarely reached beyond a small circle. And so most people would find themselves in a spot where they were really looking for help from some of these gatekeepers. But here's the thing, in the world that we live in right now, that world is gone. I mean, to some degree, you could say it still exists, but it doesn't really exist with the same force that it once did, because we now live in a time where anyone, literally anyone with a message or with a product or with a skill, they can reach a global audience almost instantly without asking for permission. One of the benefits of living in the internet age is that the internet's removed the barriers that used to stand between creators and their audience. And I'll tell you what, if you're willing to be consistent, if you're willing to be strategic, if you're willing to be a bit adaptable, you can build a thriving platform entirely on your own. That's what we talk about all the time here in Platform Launchers. It's something that I've done. It's something that many of our members have done, and it's something that you can do. And I'm going to go through some details about, some next steps that you could take. I'll save that for the end of the podcast this week. But I want to make mention of a few things here leading up to that, because I just want to share why you no longer need the traditional gatekeepers and how you can start building without them. So first off, not going through these, traditional gatekeepers. One of the reasons why you don't need to do that is because right now you have direct access to your audience. They're not behind the gate like they used to be. The biggest shift in the digital era is that right now you can connect directly with the people that you want to serve. You could do that through social media. You could do that through email marketing, podcasts. By the way, podcasts been the biggest way that I've ever connected with anybody. Your blogs, your video platforms, all of those things give you the tools to speak straight to your audience without an intermediary deciding whether or not your voice is worthy to be heard. So, for example, and I hope you'll do this if you haven't already done this, a writer can self-publish an ebook on Amazon and then market it to thousands or millions of readers without a single meeting with a publisher. What do you think about that? I mean, what I'm saying here is absolutely true, and you have that opportunity right in front of you. Or let's say that you like to do coaching, and you like to meet with people one-on-one, or maybe even do group coaching. Well, a coach can start a podcast, and through that podcast, start sharing valuable insights and then attract clients without the need of a conference stage. This kind of direct this kind of direct access that we have right now, it actually bypasses years of waiting that used to accompany whether or not people even got the opportunity to do things like this, because people would basically have to wait for someone else's approval and just wait until they got that green light before they could build an audience. But now we have the opportunity to build our audience and keep control over our message. We indeed have direct access to our audience. But another thing that's beneficial, as far as living in this era right now where we're not dependent on gatekeepers, is that you have the privilege to keep ownership and keep control of your intellectual property. When you go through traditional gatekeepers, and there are some traditional gatekeepers that I have gone through at different seasons of my life. I've sometimes even done this in a bit of a hybrid with, the stuff that I'm creating, but the stuff that I create for others. But when you go through traditional gatekeepers, the downside of that is that you often give up control because publishers can change your title. If you're creating a book, they can change your cover. I've had them do that. the One of my books that is published through a traditional publisher, I practically begged them to change the cover, and they said no. They liked the cover as it was, and it made me a little bit sad. If you're a musician, record labels, what happens? They can own your music rights. Networks, if you're part of a network, they can dictate your content. And once you're signed to a contract with a gatekeeper, you may have little say in how your work is used. But when you build your own online platform, like we talk about here on the online business blueprint, like we do inside platformlaunchers.com, when you build your own online platform, you decide what to create, when to release it, and how to monetize it. You own your audience list. You control your branding. You can pivot your strategy without waiting for somebody else's sign off. And that kind of autonomy, it means you can adapt quickly while also staying true to your values and maintain, hopefully, a closer connection with your audience. But something else to keep in mind in the midst of this is this idea that this also gives us some lower barriers to entry. Not long ago, really a very short time ago, when you were either producing a book or recording an album or filming a professional quality video, that used to require expensive equipment, that used to require a lot of specialized expertise. But now the tools that we need are often in our pocket. Right now in my hand, if you're watching the video, I'm holding my smartphone right here in my hand. I've got my iPhone. I actually just filmed a video on this just the other day when I was mowing my lawn, put it up on YouTube, and it did really well. It was something that I was able to monetize through affiliate links and things like that because the tools for most digital creation we have right in our pocket. A smartphone can shoot some of the best video that you've ever shot in your life. High definition video, stabilized, looking fantastic. Affordable microphones. The microphone I have right in front of me cost me a couple $100, but I have microphones that have cost $50 that sound almost as good. So affordable microphones can produce broadcast level audio. And by the way, with the microphone that I'm speaking into right now, I have oftentimes been featured on one particular radio station that will patch me in, a radio station that I have a good relationship with, and I just use this microphone. It's the Shure MV7. It cost me $250. It produces broadcast level audio. And then when it comes to software, there's lots of free and low-cost editing software that lets you publish your work without breaking the bank. I have editing software for books, editing software for audio, editing software for video. I use that stuff all the time. Maybe you do as well. It's not expensive. Some of it's even free. And what ends up happening is this is democratized tools. This is democratized resources. This is democratized opportunities. And what that means now is that really the only barrier is your own personal willingness to learn how to use the software and the tools, and then to put in the work to create the content. But if you're committed to delivering quality content and then improving that content over time as you practice your craft, you can produce professional results without a massive budget and certainly without corporate backing. You can do it yourself. You could build your own online platform. You don't have to rely on the traditional gatekeepers. And something else you can do that earlier in, media history, people were less willing to do, but there's certainly benefit to doing this, and that's the idea of building in public, meaning you don't have to build it all privately and then release it once it's polished. You can build it in public. When you're working with some of the traditional gatekeepers, They tend to want you to have a finished and polished product before they'll even consider you. They want you to prove that you're good at what you do and that you create wonderful things. They basically want you to not even need them before they offer you something, right? But online platforms thrive on transparency and they thrive on progress. People love to see that. And basically, you can invite your audience into the process. They can watch you get good at what you're doing. They can share your journey. They can enjoy some of your behind the scenes work as you allow them to see that. They can grow with you as you learn lessons along the way. And so that build in public approach, it actually has a huge advantage. I think it creates buy-in even before your product or services tend to launch. I think people feel connected to you because they feel connected to your journey. I think people will oftentimes find themselves rooting for your success. And then when you get around to doing something like releasing your book or releasing your course or your music or your app or whatever you're going to release, they're usually already eager to support you because they've watched the process unfold in real time. You can build in public. That's one of the benefits of not working with the traditional gatekeepers and building your own platform. And the other thing to keep in mind is the opportunities that come with this aren't just local, they're global. I think in the past, you might have needed to live in a major city or maybe have the right local connections to get noticed. But now, location matters far less. In fact, your audience could be scattered across countries, across time zones. And yet, because of the tools that we have at our disposal right now, your audience, whomever they are, they can find you instantly. And that global reach means that your potential market is exponentially larger than it ever was in the gatekeeper area. That became very evident to me, by the way, when I started podcasting. And I would look at the stats and I would start to discover where people were actually listening to my shows. And people were listening to my shows in places that I have never been, nor do I expect to ever go. And I thought that was amazing to look at that. And that is, I mean, that global reach is something that's just far beyond what was once available to us in the gatekeeper area. So a niche that might not be viable in your hometown, let's say, you live in an area that's not highly populated and there's not a lot of people that really know what you do or care about what you do. And the niche that might not be popular in your hometown, it could actually be something that can sustain an entire business when you're reaching people worldwide because your audience is the entire world at this point. And the beauty is you don't have to wait for a distributor or a promoter to put you in those markets. You're automatically in those markets by producing valuable content. Your content is instantly available globally the moment you post it. And honestly, that seems miraculous to me. As someone who grew up when I grew up, I look at this and I think there's some people that I guess are used to that. There's a part of me that is still not used to that, even though I very much accept that it's the reality. You become global the second you publish valuable content. And here's the other thing: proof beats permission. What do I mean by that? Why am I even bringing that up? Proof beats permission. One of the most liberating realities of living in the internet age is that results speak louder than gatekeeper approval. If you can show that what you're doing actually helps people, that it actually resonates, that people find it useful, that they're utilizing it. And you can show that whether that's through downloads or subscribers or sales or engagement, people will take notice. And again, you can build your own brand, you can build your own platform. And in fact, there are many creators who build their audience independently. Many of them eventually get approached by some of the very gatekeepers that they once thought they needed. And the difference is now that they've already built their thing, they actually have some leverage. And if you decide to work with a gatekeeper once you've already built up your own platform, you might actually be able to negotiate with them from a position of strength, or you may just choose to keep doing things your own way. But sometimes some of those gatekeepers will approach you and say, hey, we see what you're doing. We want to work with you. I've had that happen twice in my life. I had that happen with a publishing deal, and I had that happen with a podcast networking deal and also a blog syndication deal. So I actually had that happen 3 times now that I think about it. But basically, it started with me building things on my own and not going through the gatekeepers. And then once something was built, then the gatekeepers started noticing it. I still remember before I got invited to be part of the podcast network that I'm part of right now, I received an email from the director of acquisitions. And in the email, there was a video with him holding up I think it was like a whiteboard that said, "Hey, John," basically showing that it was a targeted message directly from me. It actually got my attention, and I listened to it, and I thought, oh, this is interesting. The gatekeepers came because of what I built before I needed them. But here's the other thing, the hybrid option is also available if that's something that appeals to you. I don't think, like obviously our theme this week is this idea of building what you're building without needing the gatekeepers, but rejecting the need for gatekeepers doesn't mean that you can't work with them later should you choose to do so. I think many creators, like I just mentioned that I have done, they build their self-built platforms as proof of concept and then later partner with publishers or labels or networks and use that to then expand their already growing reach, or sometimes to earn just a nice quick paycheck because some of those gatekeepers actually have the ability to dispense with funds quite liberally. But here's the thing, the relationship changes in that context. You're no longer just a hopeful applicant waiting for their approval. You're a proven creator, and you're entering into, hopefully, a mutually beneficial deal. But again, by starting independently, you remove the pressure to get discovered. You're basically giving yourself space to create on your own terms. And I think that freedom often leads to better and certainly more authentic work. So if you're still with me here, and you're thinking about these things and you're wondering, all right, I'm interested in getting something going, or I'm interested in expanding what I already have going, and I don't want to depend on the gatekeepers. You're probably asking the question, all right, how do I start without gatekeepers? Or how do I build on what I've already built without relying on gatekeepers to give me that push or to give me approval? Well, here's just a few very simple, just 6 super, super simple, super quick suggestions if you're at the starting line and you're trying to build without gatekeepers. The first thing I would say is this: choose your core message or offer. So get clear on what you want to share and who you want to reach. So that's number one. Choose your core message or your offer. You want to be really clear on your message and who you want to reach. Number two is pick one primary platform for starters, whether that's a podcast or YouTube or a blog or a social platform. Pick one primary platform. Start with one main focus so that you can grow consistently there. Again, for me, I chose podcasting. Probably if I was starting from scratch right now, I might choose YouTube. But when I got started, I chose podcasting, and I found that super beneficial. Pick one primary platform. That's number 2 on the list. All right, number 3 on the list is something I didn't do, and I regretted not doing this, but then I caught up later. But number 3 on the list is build an email list early. Social media algorithms, those things change, but an email list is something you own. I wish I built my email list early. I built it eventually. If you're just getting started, build your email list early. You own that list. It allows you to reach the people that you want to reach whenever you want to reach them, whether or not social media shows your content to them. Number 4 of 6 is this: publish consistently. Publish consistently. Frequency builds trust. Even if it's just once a week, stick to it. Some of the things that I publish, I do daily. Some I do weekly. Regardless, I'm a big fan of doing this at least once a week, but you want to be consistent with your publishing. So if you publish something on Wednesdays, this podcast comes out every Wednesday. I record it on Tuesday. I release it on Wednesday. Frequency builds trust. If you're a regular listener to this podcast, you know the podcast is there every Wednesday. I don't skip weeks. It's always there every Wednesday. My other podcasts, I have one that releases every Monday, and then the other ones release every single day. I have 2 that release every single day. But that frequency built trust. So publish consistently. Number 5, engage with your audience. Now, I just mentioned this in a previous episode of this podcast, but I want to highlight it again. Respond to comments, respond to emails, respond to messages. Relationships are the foundation of loyalty. You want to engage with your audience. And then number 6, if you're trying to build something without needing gatekeepers, you want to be someone who gives yourself permission to experiment and adapt. Don't be afraid to do something different. Try different content formats, track what works, and then refine as you go. So again, choose your core message, pick one primary platform, build an email list early, publish consistently, engage with your audience, and then give yourself permission to experiment and adapt. Again, you don't need the old gatekeepers to build something meaningful. You really don't. At one point, it felt like that's what we all needed. I used to have dreams of working with certain gatekeepers, and now I find myself saying, I don't care about that as much as I once did. In some respects, I don't care about it at all. It doesn't feel necessary any longer. I like the control that I have with the platforms that I'm in charge of. The tools, the platforms, the access that you have right now, those things that you have right now are more powerful than anything that creators had 20 years ago. What you have right now is more powerful than what was available to those creators 20 years ago, and that's not a long time ago. The most important ingredient is not permission, it's persistence. You don't need permission to build your online platform. Again, if you show up consistently, if you keep improving, if you stay focused on serving your audience well, you can build a platform that is both impactful and profitable without ever waiting for someone else to open the door. In today's world, the truth is you are the gatekeeper, and you don't have to wait around for the traditional gatekeepers like we once thought we did, right? You don't need the traditional gatekeepers to build a successful online platform. I hope you'll give it a shot. I hope some of these ideas that I've thrown your way are helpful. I have to tell you, this is what I did, and it worked for me, and I have every confidence that it can work for you. If your message is helpful for others, this can work for you as well. I hope you'll take a moment at some point soon to visit us at platformlaunchers.com. And if you've never considered becoming part of our members club, don't hesitate to do that as well. You get to join us on our live calls. In fact, as soon as I finish the podcast here, I jump on live with some of our content creators that are in our members club, and we'd love to invite you to be part of that as well. I've got some more info about that at platformlaunchers.com. I hope you check it out, especially since you can join for a couple weeks for free. Platformlaunchers.com, that's the place to go. But that's it for us this week. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's always a pleasure to be able to spend this time with you. And we look forward to catching up with you again right here next time. So have a great week, and we'll see you really soon. Take care.